For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise, and you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble. Thanks for tuning in today. Is education overrated? Ooh, dun, dun, dun. How controversial are we going to get in the first 30 seconds of the show this week? Is education overrated? Think about it. When I was a kid growing up, I was told that you have to go to university. You need a degree. You want to make good money. You need education. Then, when I actually, grow up and go into the real world, I sit there and think, what a crock of shit. What a crock of shit. And this is even before the days of influencers and, everybody just, making their own money doing, I guess it's called a side hustle. This is before the days of just being able to take off your clothes for OnlyFans and make $1 million a year, right? That wasn't even an option when I was growing up. But is education overrated? Now, I realize that, yes, certainly the fundamentals growing up, basic math, but we have calculators now, right? Now I'm not making the argument, I'm not being a teenager and going, but I don't need to know math, I got a calculator. I'm just saying that, basic simple math, if you're having to figure out prices in a store and let's not always rely on our phone for everything, everybody, right? But is education, post-secondary, a lot of what you're learning in high school, is it overrated? Is there too much emphasis and too much importance on it? It's only been in the last few years that I've kind of sat there and gone, you know what? Yeah, we were totally brainwashed into thinking that, you need the education. You need it. If you want to be something in this world, you need to go to university or college. And university was always the top one because that just seemed more upper echelon. And then, college just seemed, low end trash. But you needed at least some sort of post-secondary education and a degree, no less. So I'm going to walk you through my thoughts because let me explain how we come up with these topics and these ideas on the show. Is that it comes from some kind of a discussion that we have here amongst our group. Now, we're all kind of in our 40s, 50s, and 60s at this company. We've all known each other. I think we've all known each other. What is it now? Probably 18 years. Our group has been together from magazine publishing to book publishing to newspaper to syndicated radio to the podcast to everything. So we've got a solid group. And we have discussions about anything and everything, right? We were talking about porn the other week on this show. So is education overrated? And I come from a family of my mom being a teacher for 30-some years. My brother's a teacher's assistant. His wife is a teacher. My uncle was a teacher. So, it's not like I'm poo-pooing education, but maybe there's too much importance on some things. I'll tell you about that coming up on The Scribble right after this.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
JB here on The Scribble. You remember having some of those classes in school thinking, why am I learning this? Why do I have to know this? I'm never going to use this in my real life. And here's the deal. You probably didn't need to know it in your adult life. Right? Think about it. So, I talked about that at the start of the show, which is, when I think about the different math stuff that we learned, and the teacher always justified it by saying, well, if you're going to do this in life, or you're going to go into this field, or you're going to do this, I knew that I wanted to be a writer. So the odds of me needing to know trigonometry and all this other bullshit, I sat there going, I have no interest in it. And for me, I was the kind of student where if I didn't have an interest in it, which would be math or science, and I guess history and geography to a point. I'm trying to think of the classes that I was taking in high school. English was always my thing, but we took Shakespeare. We didn't even learn basic language, like, grammar and basic spelling. I remember my friend Sheena, when we were in grade 12, she didn't know the difference between there, THEY''RE, and then THEIR, there and there. If that made a difference, saying it both ways. She didn't know the difference between those. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, she's graduating high school and she doesn't know the difference between those two words. At 17 years old, I remember thinking that, wow, the education system is failing her. I swear to you, that was what I thought. Because I was like, how is she? So she's got to know the ins and outs about dissecting poetry and what the meaning and symbolism is of this poem and Shakespeare bullshit that she's never, ever, 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 ever going to use. But she doesn't know two words that she will use for the rest of her life. She doesn't know how to spell them. She doesn't know the difference between them. That's a problem. And that right there was my kind of thought of, what are we learning and why? Why do I need Shakespeare? Well, because that's history. That's the language that was spoken. That was a language that was spoken before even, how many generations of my ancestors. Let's come to present day. Okay? Do the Shakespeare thing in history. Do Shakespeare in history. English, or language arts as it was called in the earlier years than English in high school. Teach me English. Shakespeare? Nobody talks like that. Nobody talks. So why am I having to do book reports and, language that I don't understand because nobody has spoken it for however many years, if ever. But that's what we were learning in school. Same thing with poetry. You'd have to write a book report about this novel. And again, I sit there thinking about it now. And this is coming from a writer, so it's not like I'm shitting on the English language. I was fascinated by it. I wanted to learn more about it. That's what frustrated me about English in school. So, you have to do a book report on these, whatever the books were, Catcher in the Rye or Death of a Salesman, or, I can't even remember all of them. But, you sit there and go, why? I'm answering questions about this book. Like, what is this teaching me, though? Is the skill here researching? Is it symbolism? Is it, what is the overall message in having to write a book report on Death of a Salesman? That we would go around the room, we would each have a page, the teacher would go and so-and-so would start us off, and then you would read a paragraph or a page or whatever it was. And again, I think back now and say, what was the takeaway? Was it just reading? Was it to help us learn the words? Was that the takeaway? Or was it something deeper that we should have been picking up on? What, I just don't know. And so it was frustrating to me, because for somebody who wanted to be a writer, who wanted to know, kind of language and sentence structure and all that kind of stuff, we weren't doing it. So, it's just, but yet I got a crash course in Shakespeare and poetry and all this other bullshit that think about this. Whatever age you are, aside from, to be or not to be, or some kind of reference to a line from a Shakespeare play, how often does Shakespeare come up in your adult life? Whether you're in your 20s or your 40s like me, I haven't had to know anything about it. But so much time was spent on it. Why? And same thing with math. I appreciate that it's an entire course that you take for an entire year. Well, you take it through the entire school system. When I was, that was from nursery school till grade 12, right? You're looking at, 12 years, right? Or 13, nursery, then kindergarten, then grade 1, 2, 3. So 14, however many years. We had to take that. It was compulsory throughout our entire school life. So you're looking at least, again, I know that not everybody has nursery or kinder, so let's say 14 years, at least for me it was. 15 perhaps even, because in Ontario they go to grade 13, so who knows, whatever. At least 10 years of your education was learning math, and I just think about this going, is there really that much math right? In the grand scheme of things, I'm not even talking calculator simplifying everything for us. I'm just saying you've got your basic addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Okay, fine. Long division then, all that borrow, carry the one, whatever it was. Okay, fine. We get that. But 10 years of studying it. Think again, go to your present day now and sit there and go, in my brain, do I have 10 years of math still filed away? Do I? Do you? I don't. Now, here's the beauty part. Because I'm a nerd and, like I said, a writer, whatever, I have every piece of my schoolwork from the time that I was in. I do. From the time that I was in nursery school, kindergarten, grade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, college. I have all of that work still. So when I knew that we were going to be doing this show, I was like, all right, let me just flip through social studies, science. In grade 10, I took sociology. So I went through all of my files. I didn't look at every single piece of paper, but I was, just kind of flipping through each subject, every subject of every grade that I was in. And again, did I retain half of it? I don't even know that I retained it while I was in school still. So, you just look at this and go, wow. Oh, think about how many years of your life you spend in a classroom and how much of that stuff, fast forward to today, present day, how much of that stuff are you actually using today? Not even how much of it were you using 5 years after you learned it or while you were learning it. Fast forward that 20 years or 30 years or 40 years like us in this building. How much of it? Very, very little. And that's not even to say, I'm not even going to go and blame and say, well, technology, we don't need math because we have calculators. That's not what I'm saying. I just look at that and go, because again, I graduated before we had all the technology. So back to the trigonometry thing, or, when we had, in school, we had to pick a science, biology, chemistry, whatever it was. I remember saying, even before I went into high school, I'm not dissecting an animal. I'm not cutting open an animal. I'm not picking apart, something that's, that was always my thought, was that's what you had to, because you see that on TV, right? That, we got to cut up a frog today, we're going to do it. Well, that wasn't anything that happened in our school. But I just remember thinking, I have no interest in science. If you're going to force me to cut open animals, that's turning me off from science. Science as a whole, whether that was astronomy, whether that was, the planets, whether that was, it put me off from science, period. Any kind of science. Whether it was, we had to make paper airplanes, so, we were learning about lift and all this, how gravity and all this other stuff works. Science, I completely shut it out as soon as I heard about dissecting animals. Nope, not doing science. So even doing that, right? I mean, what did that teach you? What was the point of that? So you're looking at the inside, you're looking at the body of an amphibian. Okay, so what does that do for you in real life? What, right? What did it teach you? What was the point of that? What was the takeaway? I want to hear from you. If you cut up an animal, if you cut up something in school, what was your takeaway? Was it cool? Was it gross? Did you ask yourself in that moment, why are we doing this? And then whatever you learned, if you even remember that, what was the takeaway? Is it still with you today? Do you still remember, okay, this is this body part, but it's a fucking frog. What was okay. Do they have all of the same body parts as a human? Well, that's maybe somebody would say, well, if you took it, you would know the answer to that. I challenge anybody who took that in school to tell me yes or no without Googling it. Send me an email, live@jbonair.com. live@jbonair.com. Do you see where I'm going with this, everybody? It was beat into our heads that you need to have a post-secondary education, college, university, some kind of a degree, a master's, a bachelor's, a whatever the fuck it was, because you're not going to make anything in your life. You're not going to become anything if you don't have that piece of paper. And I remember that being a big deal on resumes when I was applying for jobs and everything, was that, it was a big deal that you graduated high school. You needed to show that you graduated high school. They're not going to hire you if you didn't graduate high school. Now, I was going to be a writer, so it was different if you're going to be, a counter person at, let's say, McDonald's or something. I was going to be I wanted to be a journalist. That's totally different. You do need an education for something like that. But do you now? Do you now need an education to be a journalist? Because when I see the shit that journalists are putting out, the new fluffheads, the blonde, busty meteorologists that are doing selfies, and look at my new shoes before I go on the air, that's our breed of journalists now? Okay. So I think I also have that feeling about post-secondary education, and I'll talk about that coming up on the Scribble right after this.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
It's never too early to start thinking about your next holiday. Have you checked out Mexico recently? From tequila tasting, swimming with horses, to ziplining through the jungle and watching whales and dolphins in their natural habitat, Puerto Vallarta has it all. Visit mexico.jbonair.com to see all the fun PV has to offer. That's at mexico.jbonair.com for hundreds of photos, interviews, and videos from around the tourist hotspot. Check out mexico.jbonair.com for all the fun. That's mexico.jbonair.com.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
JB here on the Scribble, shitting on education. That's what I'm doing today on the show. Now, don't get me wrong. Let me be very clear on this. I realize that a profession, like a doctor or whatever, yes, requires education. I'm not saying education is for suckers. I'm just saying, depending on what it is that you want to do in life, maybe you don't need an education. And I realize that a lot of parents are doing that just because they want to teach their kids, responsibility. Like you want to strive for something, that you want to, make something. You don't want to just be. And I remember looking at some of the students that I was in high school with. So I mentioned my friend Sheena. She ended up becoming a manager at a Foot Locker store. And I just remember saying to her at one time, like, what are you going to do after that? Like, don't you have that's going to be your dream, is be a manager at Foot Locker? Like, really? I mean, no, okay, whatever. If you want to work in a mall the rest of your life, okay, fine. And I just remember looking at her going, wow, that's such a waste. I can't believe that's what you want to do. Because you think about some of the different professions, right? You kind of hear people go, well, nobody wants to grow up and be a bus driver, or nobody wants to grow up and be a whatever. Well, some people do. I did want to be a bus driver. I did. Nowadays, no, I'm not going to get, punched in the face because I asked somebody to pay the fare. No, not happening. But when it comes to post-secondary education, I like I said, I was a writer. I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to be a newspaper reporter. That was my thing, back when newspapers were a thing. And for that, you needed to get into a special selection program at the college that I applied to. And even then, I kind of felt lesser than, because it wasn't a university program. It was something at the community college. And that, again, was even sort of looked down on by some people. Right? Is that a university degree? Oh, it's a college diploma. And you felt judged. Oh, a diploma. Oh. Like you have some kind of fucking disease or something. But the way that it was the way it was presented to us, or the way it made us feel, was that this was a special selection program. That you needed to apply, you needed to have a portfolio, you needed to go for an interview. This was, top line. Again, fucking, it's community college, people. Community college. Making it seem like it was just the hoity-toity kind of, once you're in the program, then you're just sort of like, what a crock of shit. Right? So you had to have a portfolio. And even then, there's just this fear in you that you're not going to get accepted because they only accept, 60 people every year. And then they made a big deal because they were going to have 3 different classes. They were going to accept 75 people that year. So this was a big deal. Okay, I've got a better chance of getting in now, right? And it was just like this hoity-toity, you got accepted, now you're part of the club. Like this big exclusive, I'm paying to be here. This is not some kind of, it's not like, oh, you accepted me? Okay, well, if you're giving me this free education, okay, but I'm still paying to be here. You kind of have that when you hear somebody went to Harvard, right? Or Yale or Stanford, there's all of a sudden this, oh, he must be smart. Well, or his parents had money. Yeah, or his parents had money. It's really what it comes down to in some instances. So for me, it was kind of like, all right, well, I was accepted into the program on my first try, which they also made it seem like that's a big deal. If you do get on your first try, I'm like, okay, fine. So I'm better than half the other people in this group. And so once I'm in the program, we had sort of the main courses of advertising, public relations, journalism, and broadcasting, and those were kind of the biggies. You had other things like creative writing, composition and grammar, some other sub courses, but your 4 biggies were those ones. And so you had to take all of them in the first year, and then you would pick a major, and that's what you would focus on in your second year. So you're going through the first year, and the broadcast program, we were in a new building. They had just moved to a different campus. It was still under construction, so we didn't even have anything for broadcasting. It was only later in the year that we were able to do, we had television cameras, but we didn't have a TV studio. We didn't have edits. So we were basically just shown a camera and shown the different functions and features of it. We didn't actually really kind of get to do anything with them. We didn't do any video editing, nothing. And again, digital stuff was not existent at the time. This was long before everything went digital. So, our TV broadcast course was from a textbook. There was no hands-on learning. There was no actual meat and potatoes. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. Like, here's a camera. Let's go out in the field and do it. We didn't have that. So, you kind of look at that and go, but I'm still paying full price for this program that I don't even get the opportunity to use. So a year before, the students in broadcasting had the opportunity to do work with a camera and all this other stuff because they had everything set up on the main campus. We're at the downtown one that's new and doesn't have everything. So we're still paying what everybody else paid and we're learning out of a book. And we got to pay for these new expensive textbooks that the others didn't need. So, that makes sense, right? So I had a bit of a resentment for that going, I've got to buy a $140, $160 textbook that we're just jumping around in. We're not even really, I'm learning about broadcasting out of a book and not actually doing it, while everybody else got hands-on learning and knows how to work a camera when they finish this program. I don't. Okay. Goes back to Sheena not being able to spell, in high school. Well, I'm going to leave college and not know how to work a camera, but yet I majored in broadcasting. Okay. Makes sense, right? So fast forward, that first year, I ended up dropping out because I couldn't afford to take my second year, and I didn't want to do student debt. My parents weren't helping me pay for anything. So I had every intention of going back into school because that's what I wanted to do. That was my thing. I was going to be a journalist. I ended up not going back. In the meantime, I ended up starting to work for myself. Now, again, this is before the days of blogs and all this other shit. This is before the days that everybody was a writer, everybody was a broadcaster. That wasn't happening at the time. So I started to work for myself. I decided to start writing commentaries, and then I would spend hours every night finding contact information for newspaper publishers and editors. And then I had a database of about 600 of them. And I would every week write an opinion commentary and then just email it to everybody individually. I didn't just do like blind copy. I emailed every single one of them individually for weeks and weeks and weeks on end. Eventually, a couple of them, I guess, started to recognize my name, or maybe I'd hit on some good points that, interested them. And all of a sudden I got offers to be a columnist. And I thought, perfect. My original plan, as I said, was to make money in the industry and then go back to school. I wanted to go back to school. It wasn't like I dropped out because I hated journalism and I don't want to do it. It was what I wanted to do. And again, brainwashed into thinking you need this education. So I start to just write a weekly column and I send it to these 3 newspapers. And that's where I understood, or I became familiar with what syndication was that you do it once, do the work once, write it once, and then you sell it to a bunch of them. So you're cashing in several different ways. Fast forward, that's how we did our radio shows, right? We had syndicated to 40 some radio stations. So I've become a columnist, and I'm doing this, and I'm getting a bigger audience. Then all of a sudden, a radio station in Vancouver read my column, hits me up and says, do you want to record that for radio? We have a chat show kind of a thing. Do you want to read your commentaries on the air? Oh my God. Okay, great. So I did the work the one time, wrote it once. It took me like 15 minutes. I sell it to 3 newspapers. Now I'm going to sell it to a radio station. Okay, great. Now then, take it one step further. I figure out this is when you kind of start to understand Microsoft Publisher and those kinds of programs back in the day. Again, not everybody had a website at the time. But I went on to Microsoft Publisher. I'm like, oh, this is really easy to make a website. So I started to post my commentaries. And you can then get ads on there. So I would start to sell advertising space on this website. Again, before the days of Google ads and all that other shit. That didn't exist at the time. So here I am. I write the thing once, and I'm cashing in how many different ways on this? Oh my God. Okay, perfect. So my interest in journalism continued because I was still doing current events like commentary or whatever. I was still fascinated by news. But I realized, okay, wait a second. I don't have the full-on education. I don't have the diploma. Nobody asked me for that. The bottom line was, can you write? Can you write? Can you articulate, an opinion or a position? Can you articulate it? Does it make sense? How much editing do we have to do? Okay, this kid's got chops. Okay, perfect. Let's pick him up every week. Let's give him a column. He can write whatever the fuck he wants, and we'll pay him for it every week. Okay, great. So that turned into a recurring radio show. I was not only just a commentator for this 1 minute and a half kind of a segment on Thursdays or Tuesday, whatever it was, I don't remember now. Then they asked me if I wanted to host my own show, and I thought, oh my God, this is crazy. Now I turned them down at first. I said, no, I don't want to host. I'm going to be a newspaper reporter. That's my thing. But I kind of kept that in the back of my head going, I wonder if I could though, right? There's nothing keeping me. I had plenty of time. I had all the time in the world, right? Because I wasn't working a 40-hour week anymore. I was making pretty good money just having to write this one column on a Monday, and now I'm set for the week just by doing that. This is perfect. So I eventually then said, yes, okay, I'll host, a radio show. And then that turned into this top 40 show that I hosted for 15 years. 15 years. I hosted top of the charts. I was a newspaper columnist in the Southeast Journal in Emerson, Manitoba for 20 years. 20 years in the newspaper, a weekly column, paid every week. Really. So, you're shamed. When I had to drop out of school, of course, my classmates, it was sort of like, oh my God, he's dropping out. Oh my God, he's quitting. He's a quitter. He's not going to do it. And I look up some of these people now, and I was a bit jealous. I was a bit bitter because, this person got a TV job as a reporter, or this person's working for the paper. And I was kind of a bit sore, right? Because, that should have been me. But where are they now, right? That was always kind of my thing. And I don't really know that many people in my high school class definitively knew what they wanted to do like I did. Like I knew that I wanted to be a writer from probably about grade 8, I would say, even before high school. I don't know anybody in my class that had the same sort of passion for anything. My friend Greg wanted to be a soccer player and, kind of did that and had some acclaim through high school. But, and then he wanted to be a lawyer, so he ended up going to law school. I remember editing his papers and everything for him when I was in college, so, early 20s. It didn't work for him. He didn't do it. He failed at it. So, and then some of these other people, like I said, was a TV reporter, whatever, like where, I don't even know. I'd have to look them up. I remember a girl, Mira, was the big thing that she was working for one of the TV stations, the cable access channel. And she was like, where is Mira now? Or Sabrina was doing the traffic on the radio. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I went to school with her. That's crazy. Where is she now? Where is she now? Is she still in radio? Is she still in broadcasting? Is Mira still in broadcasting? Or Melissa, she ended up being an entertainment columnist for the newspaper. Where is she now? She's not there anymore. She's not even in the business anymore. And yet here I am, retired at 39 after making a shit ton of money in the business. So I look at that and go, well, these people had the full-on education. They had the piece of paper. They had that on their resume. And I learned very quickly that as a journalist or somebody in media broadcasting, I basically ended up taking off my education. When I was applying for jobs, it was like, this is what I've done. This is who I've written for. This is who I've, this is with whom I've worked. I guess that's the better English, right? This is all my accomplishments professionally. Do I have the diploma? They didn't care. Like I said, can he write? Yes, no. Can he give us a full-bodied journalistic report that's fair, balanced, gives research, gives facts? Is that what? If he can, great. Going back to what I was saying about today's journalists, you've seen them. They're probably in your town. It's the busty blonde. She's doing the pose. She's got her hand on her hip, standing in her high heels, doing these me shots before she's going on the air. What the fuck does that have to do with being a journalist? And I always hate the ones where I see them, they're covering the flood, or they're covering the hurricane, or they're covering the whatever it was, the earthquake. And you see them doing these shots of them wearing their big boots and whatever, making themselves the star of the story. No, you're not. You're not the star of the story. This is why nobody trusts the news media, is because it's not fair and balanced anymore. It's, this woman likes the shoes that she's wearing, so she's going to show us that before she goes on the air today. Who the fuck cares? Right? It's I want to be seen on TV. I want to be famous. I want to be on Instagram. I want to do and where are these people going to be? Back to what I was just saying about Mira, Melissa, and all these other people, Sabrina. Where are they 15 years from now? Where are they? Are they still in the business? Or will the industry turn around and go, sorry, that's just because you're pretty and busty and whatever. I remember seeing the first couple, when I moved to Los Angeles for the radio shows, I remember looking at the news and going, all these reporters are blonde and like very, very pretty. Like, is that how the news business works in this country? Like, that was never the case before. You had to be, you were old. It was not, I'm just saying, not just white men. I mean, it was old people. But for some reason we trusted them because maybe it was the age thing. I don't know. So, education, at least for what I was going to do in life, now is moot at that point. Because if you think about what I would have been learning in journalism and TV production and broadcasting back then, the technology has changed. Just the technology, period. Could I go into, a radio studio or operate a television camera in a TV studio now? No. Probably even the radio stuff is so much different. See, for me, I was going to say, could I go into radio? I don't know, because we've had this set up for years, and I just come in and sit, and we've got a team that does the hitting the buttons and switches and things. So, but I wouldn't be able to do it. But, I've aged out of that industry based on the education. It would be irrelevant now, half the stuff that I learned. And then now, like I said, thanks to blogs and the fast money that you can make just, pulling out your tits on OnlyFans, or being a big busty blonde, a fluff head on Instagram, you can have 10,000 followers. And once you leave the TV reporting job, well, there you go. Now you've got, work as a porn star for however many years. But where are you going after that? That's the thing. Where are you going after that? Does the education help you? Really? Did it help you get that job in the first place? Because again, if you were taught journalism the way I was, it was beat into your head that you were not the story. You did not make yourself the story. You didn't. So, break and then go, or what are we doing? Send me an email about your education, what you learned in school. Did it help you? Does it help you in day-to-day life now? And let's say you majored in what you wanted to be growing up. Right? Maybe you want to be an architect or whatever. How much of that education, I realize that yes, there's going to be a lot that you do use on a daily basis, but how much of that do you look back on and go, that was so bullshit, right? Back to what I was saying about math. You had over 10 years of math, 10 years of learning math. Is that still in your brain? Do you still use it all? Or just the basics enough to get through life? live@jbonair.com is the email address, live@jbonair.com.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter @The Scribble Show and @thescribbleshow.com. JB here, back on The Scribble. My show runneth over is what they tell me. And you know what? I'm actually kind of liking that, because I used to, very militaristically, if that's a word, used to, if you've been listening to the show for any length of time, you know that it was 30 minutes exactly. Every week it was 30 minutes. Very rarely would we go over, unless we had, a couple celebrity guests or, really good discussion happening. It was basically, we treated it like a radio show. Like I was talking about 15 years on the radio.
your life kind of becomes that. Your life is sort of like, I know that it's going to take me 30 seconds to get to this. It's going to take me 47 seconds to pee and then get back into the studio. You just kind of pick up on those things after a while. And so we got it kind of down to a science where it was like, all right, I know how much I'm going to talk during a segment or on a certain subject. We can do 1, 2, and 3. We probably won't get to 4, so let's just not even bother. Give me these 3 segments and we can do it. And I like now that there's not necessarily a rush. I can just kind of, get through it. And if we go 35 minutes, we go 35 minutes. If we go 39, we go 39. I don't want to ever get 30 minutes, and then 2.5 hours. We're never going to do that. Because I feel like there needs to be some consistency. And the reason why I started out 30 minutes was because I would do, back in the day, would do the treadmill, right? And sometimes you would watch either a TV show or whatever it was. I would always do 45 minutes on the treadmill. That would be 2 episodes of a sitcom generally. And so that was kind of how my timing went, right? Okay, it's going to be a 45-minute run on the treadmill or walk on the treadmill, 2 episodes, and then I'm done. That's how I timed it. And then it was kind of 30 minutes sort of makes sense for things, right? Because you could maybe listen to this on your lunch break if you get 30 minutes for lunch, or you can do it, as you're walking the dog or whatever. It was just timed right. So you knew what you would be getting consistently. 30 minutes, week after week, that's what we're doing. I appreciate different podcasts. I generally listen to, the celebrity ones where they interview each other, although after a while it kind of gets old because they all just go on each other's shows and you're like, I've already heard this. I already heard him tell this story on this celebrity's podcast. I don't need to listen to it again. But that's what I don't like about those. You can have, I'm trying to think of the ones I listen to, Smartless or Fly on the Wall with, David Spade and Dana Carvey, or Bill Maher, or Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend. Those are the ones that I listen to. I don't like when it's, one episode is 30 some minutes and then the next one is an hour and 20. It just kind of throws me off. I just don't like it. So that's why we always did 30 minutes. You knew what you were getting. And now I've just rambled for another almost 3 minutes and we've gone even later. I love it. So, do you think education is overrated? Did you retain any of the stuff that you were taught in elementary school? Not any of it. Obviously you did. But, just think about how much time was spent on things. And back then, did you question it? Not just the whiny, why do I have to learn this? Why do I have to learn? No, I'm just thinking even the basics of, trigonometry, algebra, even some history to a certain extent. You're kind of just like, why do I need to know this shit? Why Shakespeare? Why did I have to learn that in grade 10, 11, and 12? 3 years learning that bullshit. What was the point? Why? Why did I have to do it? Send me an email, live@jbonair.com, live@jbonair.com. My name is Jeremy Bradley. This is The Scribble. I will talk to you same time, same place next week. Bye-bye for now.
Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.
If you want some real